Welcome to another Riverside Chat for SacTV.com. I'm Alex Cosper. I like to number these Riverside Chats so that I can keep track of how they evolve, because each one is like an evolution from the previous one. At least that's how I want it to kind of play out. Anyway, last time I talked about a few things that I should clarify. One, I talked about an indie song that shook up a lot of people because of the lyrical content. But it was indie because it was an artist who wasn't signed to any label. And his name is Oliver Anthony. And so his music is found on Spotify and Apple Music and all those other streaming sites under Oliver Anthony Music is what he calls it. So yeah, he's not signed to any record label, and yet what I forgot to mention last time was that his song hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. That's right, he released it August 11th. A song called The Rich Men North of Richmond. He, I guess, recorded it not long before that, but uploaded it August 11th through the music distribution service called DistroKid, which I'm using myself for my music. And it's widely used by many indie musicians. He uploaded it to DistroKid, which then distributes it to like Apple Music, Spotify, and all those other ones. Tidal. So you got a long list of streaming platforms that all kind of converge through distributors like DistroKid. Anyway, Oliver Anthony had the #1 song for 2 weeks in a row on the Billboard Hot 100, beating out Taylor Swift and all these other artists that have millions of dollars back behind them in promotional budgeting, whereas he wasn't, as far as I know, didn't spend anything on it, and he didn't even get radio airplay, which is normally necessary to make #1 on the Hot 100. But he got some radio airplay, but not much, you know, as far as terrestrial radio. What happened was his song was discovered by a website, kind of like a blog type website, and they mentioned his song, and then it went viral from there. And then from there, other people started finding out about it. Like Joe Rogan found out about it, so he talked about it on his show. Jimmy Dore, a popular progressive comedian, he talked about it, and some other sites like that. Pretty much, you know, gave it a mention, and next thing you know, it's getting like 140,000 downloads or something like that. I forget the. It was enough to be #1 and beat out all of the major label stuff. So that's why I thought it was a relief that indie artists, that was the first time that had ever happened. So the only other time when an artist was unsigned and got to #1 was Stay by Lisa Loeb and 9 Stories in the 90s, but that was also on a movie soundtrack that promoted that song, and that was a big reason. So anyway, and then they eventually got signed, but this guy wasn't signed at all, man. In other words, he had no connection to like the big music scene. Now he's part of it. Okay, so he made a bunch of money on this streaming through Spotify and Apple Music, and that's really what indie artists can do, except that neither of these platforms pay very much. They pay you know, micro pennies for each stream when someone listens. And you know, that's good for big biz. They still are able to make 30 grand a week out of it, or whatever they make. But I saw some recent charts that compared Spotify with Apple Music, and yes, Apple Music and Tidal both pay way more than Spotify. So something to keep in mind if you're an indie artist. And that's at this time in September 2023. You never know what the future brings, as corporations are always changing their game plans, always trying to compete in the marketplace. But at the moment, you know, I think it's interesting that somebody from an indie scene, not from the major national scene, made it to the top of the music charts in 2023. Okay, he did it with kind of a southern type, almost country type Americana song. And like a singer-songwriter storyteller thing about what's going on today. And it was all about the high cost of living. So, and the frustrations that come with it. Now that rings true with a lot of independent artists. A lot of independent musicians don't have good jobs, or if they rely on just music, then they might be broke. Although some people can make a living at gigging and session work if you live in one of the big music cities, which are, you know, New York City, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Nashville. I guess Austin would be one of those now. Certainly Seattle. So you have music cities all over America, you know, usually big cities. Sacramento isn't considered one of those music cities, although we've had some successful acts out of this region. Tesla has sold over 14 million albums in America. So, and that's been through like Geffen Records, and you know, I think they're an indie band now. But anyway, we've had millions of albums sold from artists that came from this market. Cake is another one who's sold millions. And I like to talk about them because I played a part in their you know, rising popularity back when The Distance was a big hit in 1996. It was originally a big hit on Quad, and by then they had college airplay, and but Quad helped fuel their popularity, and they went on to, you know, have really a string of big selling albums. And then they went indie after joining a major label for a while. I like talking about Billboard, which is now mainly an online publication, but at one time they were a big print magazine that you could buy at Tower Books and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's still available on the street. I just know that they are the ones, the brand that became the legend in measuring music popularity. So at one time, I was Billboard's Broadcaster of the Week in the December 9th, 1995 issue. And I'll never forget that one because Joni Mitchell was on the cover. They gave her the Century Artist of the Century Award that issue. I don't know why that particular issue, but also that issue, the Beatles were #1 with one of their anthology albums, and that was cool because the Beatles are my favorite group, and they're another benchmark that we can all look at. Now, none of us are ever going to be as great as the Beatles, those of us who play music, because the machinery isn't set up like that anymore. It used to be all one big mainstream AM radio. You know, you'd listen to one of 3 big AM stations in town that played the latest hits, and everybody heard all the same hits. The mix of Beatles, Motown, Dylan, psychedelia, all that stuff mixed together. Then in the 70s, from the 70s on, it became fragmented into formats. And so you had subgroups in society listening to just one genre. And then that all changed again. It got mixed up again in the 2000s when broadband, specifically YouTube, made it easy for anyone to listen to music. Just call up a title and put it in their search engine, and boom, you're listening to the song for free. Okay, that basically is now how more people discover music than radio. So we have to think about that. And we have to think about, okay, how can musicians get paid? And the best way musicians can get paid is doing live gigs. But say you can't do that for one reason or another. You know, maybe you can't travel, or you simply don't have the gear to do it. You don't know the right people to get the right gigs, and you just want to be a bedroom artist. I think that can happen in the 2020s and 2030s because of what just happened with Oliver Anthony, proving that something can come from the indie world and make it to the top of the national charts without going through all those filters, those big biz gatekeepers that ensure only a small amount of people make it to the top 40 or the top of the music charts or the top of just that scene, you know, that small scene of successful people. Anyway, I think we're seeing a turning point where finally indie artists can make a difference, and I want to prove that with my group. It's called Sunset Trip, and right now it's just me, but it's open to having other musicians in it in case we do live shows. But I have ideas for online music and you know, maybe shows at the river. What a beautiful place to have say like acoustic music. Have a party with just a small gathering of friends. I just want to focus on that and look at ways where the Sacramento music community can come together more, and maybe the river will play a part in that. So I want to play a part in this century's music scene, especially local music, to help my music community, which happens to be Sacramento. So I want to see more Sacramento musicians that do have the talent and want to devote time to getting better as musicians, and be competitive in the marketplace. And I want to focus on those kind of musicians as a better music source than, say, like the national top 40. In other words, I want the local top 40 to be better than the national top 40. And based on what I've heard for many years now, that won't be hard to beat. So seriously, artistically. So let's think about that and talk some more at the next Riverside Chat.